Namaskar, I am Shubhra Sinha, your course instructor, and we have now arrived at the stage where we are going to talk about the factors affecting stress tolerance, that is, individual differences in tolerating day to day stress. This is lecture 1 of module 9 of stress management course, and the lecture focuses on the factors affecting tolerance of stress. Let us have a quick recap. We are going to delve deeper into the concept of stress tolerance, factors influencing stress tolerance with special reference to individual differences with respect to personality traits. How this personality comes into play in the perception and then tolerance of stress will be taken care of. So, let us move on and start reading more about the concept of stress tolerance. Stress tolerance basically refers to the level of stress which you can manage without having any significant damage to your physical or mental health. The capacity to handle stress can vary depending upon many factors like personality traits like age, health conditions, skills that you have to cope with the situations, and many more things like that. For example, in various researches, researchers state that the skill to persevere through or handle overwhelming situations, requirements or tensions are called stress tolerance. That means what we are supposed to do, that in the situations which are somehow overwhelming, means which are intense, which can capture most of our cognitive and emotional resources. How do we deal with those situations? How do we navigate through those situations without getting significantly affected by them in any negative manner refers to our stress tolerance. Similarly, Lazarus and Folkman defines it as the ability of effectively regulating stress levels and upholding productivity and health when faced with challenges is called stress tolerance. Now, the important points of this definition are, if you look at the definition, they say effectively regulating stress levels, means stress is definitely there, we have to regulate that stress. How effectively we can do that is an indicator of our stress tolerance. And when faced with such stressful situation, can we maintain the productivity at least near to what we used to have when we were not so stressed? This is another indicator of stress tolerance which is proposed by Lazarus and Folkman in their 1984 definition. Now, here is the list of certain factors that can be important in deciding how tolerant a person can be. What are these factors? Let us have a quick review. The first factor here is individual differences which may occur at many different levels, but here in this particular lecture we will be focusing more on the personality traits. Then we will discuss about coping strategies, how adopting different coping strategies can result in different type of consequences in stress management process. This will be dealt with in upcoming lectures. Okay. Similarly, we will also talk about the life experiences and demographic and psychological factors as well. We all are different and similar too simultaneously. For example, if you look at a growing child, every child passes through the same developmental stages, but then their response in each developmental stage is unique in itself. So, no two children are exactly alike in the way they develop. Although the stages of development are by and large universal. Every individual is supposed to move on from infancy to toddlerhood and then to childhood and puberty and adolescence, young age, old age, etc., etc. But what they do, how do they take up the challenges of these stages, how successfully and how easily they navigate through these developmental stages is unique for each one of us. Similarly, another example of it is when we are given learning opportunities, some people can learn the skills quickly, whereas others may take more time. This is not a permanent feature for all types of skills. Maybe a quick learner for mathematics can be a slow learner for music, and a slow learner for mathematics can be a very quick learner of badminton or any other kind of sports. So, individuals also differ in terms of their learning capacities for different kind of content. So, individual differences are basically very deep rooted and they are very wide in terms of their impact. That is why it is important to talk about certain factors which predominantly defines our ability to tolerate stress. I am going to present you with certain factors like that, in which the first thing is the genetic predispositions, means the kind of genetic endowment that we inherit from our parents and from our ancestors. These genes are going to reflect themselves in the physiology and morphology of the body, and also they seems to define many of our psychological dispositions too. So, this is the first big factor. The second important factor in this list is past occurrences, means the past experiences with which we grow up. These past experiences involve so many things. The socialization that we have got, means the kind of parenting that we have experienced. Our socio-cultural milieu, the setting in which we grew up, the kind of education that we received, the value system that we inherited from our family or from our community. At the same time, any other significant event happened during our early stages of development, or the incidence which is strong enough or incidence intense enough to change our psychology in some way. Similarly, the third important factor is of course personality, which we will elaborate right now, and finally the stress coping methods which we have learned and which we put to use more frequently in order to counter stress. Now, coming to personality, Gordon Allport, a famous psychologist, defines personality by saying that it is a dynamic organization of psychophysical systems within the individual that determine his characteristic behavior and thought. In itself, this definition encompasses many important points to understand and elaborate. Let us do it serially. The first important thing is dynamic organization. So, the personality is not a static thing, it is a dynamic organization. Dynamic means that is changing. It can change over time in response to environmental demands. Okay. So, if we have inherited certain traits or we are predisposed to respond in a certain manner, it is not a fixed thing, it is not a static thing which cannot be changed in any kind of situation. Human behavior is largely contextual, and it is contextual because personality is dynamic. It allows you to make reasonable accommodations and changes over time. Then it is made up of the psychophysical symptoms. Means personality is neither the physical makeup of an individual nor it is the psychological makeup. Separately, these two are the elements of our personality, not the whole personality. Whole personality is constructed by an involvement of both these factors, the psychological aspect of a person and the physiological characteristics of the person. And finally, what these physiological systems do, they exist within the individual, and what they do, they try to determine his characteristic behavior and thought. Their function is to determine the typical way, the conventional way in which the person usually responds to the situation, the way he or she usually process information, arrives at a conclusion, generalize their conclusion and try to do attributions of important actions or happenings. So, the way they think and the way they behave, both these things are supposed to be determined by the dynamic organization of the psychophysical systems which exist within the individual and which is practically known as personality. Okay? Hope it is clear. Let us move on. While we describe personality, while we classify people depending upon their personality, we adopt two main approaches. One is the trait approach, another one is the type approach. I am sure most of you have heard about these terms, so I am not going to elaborate upon these approaches a lot at this point of time. Rather, I will just touch them up and talk about more about their consequences in terms of stress perception and its management. So, a trait approach means the personality is made up of traits. What are traits? These are like stable characteristics. These are like predispositions in responses towards situational demands, environmental demands. So, the most popular trait theory of personality is of course the big 5 factor theory proposed by McRae and Costa, and it says that every individual has 5 major dimensions of personality which are known as openness, conscientiousness, extroversion, agreeableness and neuroticism. When an individual has high of these traits, the behavior, the personality would be different. When the individual has low of these traits, their behavior, their personality would be different. A proper description of what happens when an individual is high with respect to a particular trait or low with respect to a particular trait has been given on this slide and it is available for your scrutiny. So, let us focus on this slide and see what it says. Openness basically means the capacity to imagine, it is the capacity to feel, have ideas, new ideas about things and to act about, try out new alternatives of behavior, new actions. So, people who are high in this particular trait are curious, usually they have wide range of interest and they are very independent, whereas people with low openness are usually practical, they like to behave in conventional ways and they prefer routine over adventures. Similarly, if we think about conscientiousness, this is the dimension which focuses on individual competence, self-discipline, thoughtfulness and goal driven behavior. So, someone who is high on this aspect will surely be hardworking, dependable, that is reliable. If you give some task to the person, you can be rest assured that the task will be done within the time limits and that too nicely. And these people are organized, very organized usually since very beginning they are quite organized. On the other hand, people who are low on these dimensions are very impulsive. That means they do not think before acting. Whatever comes to their mind, they are impatient to say it out or do it, okay, without giving it a second thought. They are quite careless and may be disorganized. The third important dimension is extraversion, which is defined by the outgoing and warm approach of a person who loves to seek adventures. On the other hand, people low on extraversion are quiet, they are reserved and they are withdrawn. So, they may have very few friends and they may like to be on quiet places, on peaceful places, instead of being on places which are crowded and being very much surrounded by the people. Agreeableness is basically a nature which is, or a trait which expresses itself in cooperative behavior, in trustworthiness of a person and the good nature of a person, which is, easy to get along with. So, people high on this dimension are usually helpful, they are trusting, they are empathetic, whereas low scoring people can be critical, they can be uncooperative or suspicious. And neuroticism is defined by the presence of unstable emotions, easy yielding towards negative emotions. So, people who are high in terms of neuroticism are anxious, unhappy and prone to negative emotions, whereas those who are low on this particular trait are usually calm, even tempered and secure. If you compare this particular section, that is the low side with the high side, you can easily make assessments about which part is going to create more stress for an individual. Of course, there is no fixed routine that people who are high on this trait will not be stressed and people who are low on this trait are going to be stressed all the time. There is no such thing. First thing that you should keep in mind is personality is a unique combination of these 5 traits, and whatever we see is an impact of this unique combination. Their combination and permutation may give you a very unique, a very different style of dealing with the situation from other people, and the level to which you are going to experience stress will be completely governed by their combined effect instead of their individual effect. Moreover, when I use the term combined effect, it does not refers to arithmetic sum of scores over these 5 dimensions. Please keep in mind that arithmetic computations or mathematical addition is not the way in which you can assess the impact of all these dimensions. Sometimes even one dimension can make very significant changes as compared to increase or decrease in the score of the other dimensions. However, if I take it at a very simple and superficial level, usually people who are low in terms of openness can experience more stress if they are supposed to get away from their conventional way of working, or if they are supposed to work in an environment which is constantly changing. Whereas people who are high in terms of openness would feel more stressed if they are put in a less stimulating environment where things are relatively fixed and are not supposed to change very quickly. So, what I am trying to tell you is there are particular contexts in which people with high openness and low openness can feel stressed. Similarly, for each dimension, because whenever a particular trait is present in higher qualities, there will be certain context which will make individuals stressed, and there will be some context in which the individuals can cope in a better way. So, they would feel less stressed. If I talk about conscientiousness, people who are impulsive usually feel more stressed because they do not think of the consequences. But people with high level of conscientiousness can feel significant level of stress if they are asked to take immediate decisions about a particular issue which is important for them or for their family or community or any other related thing, because they have an habit to think about it twice and get into elaborated reflections before they act. So, the presence of these traits fix up the context in which the person can feel more stressed or less stressed. Now, the second step, the second approach of classifying personality, and this is known as the type approach, where we try to classify personality according to the cluster of traits they show, and we keep them in one or the other type of personality. You might have heard about the classification of introverts and extroverts. You might have learned about the classification of Sat, Raj, Tam, which is a part of Indian philosophy, that people may have three types of personality predominantly based on these three dimensions. So, people having more of Sat aspect will show different kind of behavior than those who are having more of Rajas and Tamas. Similarly, there was one classification given by Friedman and Rosenman, which is known as classification of personality as personality A and personality B, and one more personality type was added to it, which was proposed by Kissen and Ising in 1962 later on, and it was extended upon by Timoshock in 1987, and this particular personality type is known as personality type C. So, finally, we have personality type A, B and C, and in the upcoming slides we will see how this classification predicts something about the perception of stress, or what kind of qualities, characteristics people are going to display who have one or the other type of personality. So, first of all, the characteristic of personality A. These people are goal oriented and ambitious, okay, and they are always driven by a competitive spirit. They are eager to advance in their pursuits. They want to outperform all others. They have a constant sense of time constraint, they are impatient, they cannot wait, and at the same time they always remain in a state of hyperactivity. They want to work more and work quickly so that they can do more and more of it in less and less time, as if something very wrong can happen if they take a minute more in completing the activity or so. Moreover, they are also driven by a sense of excellence. So, they are always after excellence. Whatever I should do, it should be excellent, it should be perfect, and they also carry a sense that no one else can perform up to the level they can. So, they put 100% of their effort, no doubt they get good results, very good results, but at the same time they fail to distribute their workload, because according to them no one else can carry out responsibilities the way they can do. In order to maintain the quality of performance, they all the time keep everything with them, they try to finish everything. To do so, they frequently engage in multiple tasking, and whenever there is a multitasking, it increases the cognitive load many times. So, they are all the time hard pressed, they get irritable quickly, and they cannot sit quietly even for some time. Mostly they are rigid in their mannerism, quickly they become angry, and they can be agitated very easily. If anything happens which does not suits their style or their expectation, they will be highly agitated. So, these are the qualities of type A personality. The second type of personality is type B, and these are non-competitive individuals. They typically prioritize personal growth over achieving specific goals. So, whatever potential they feel they have, they want to maximize their own potential at their own pace without getting much into the competitions. Okay. They like to prefer working at their own pace, and they prefer steadiness, they prefer having a focus in their life instead of moving, instead of spending some times on this activity and then on some other activity and then some other activity. They will continue with their focused, and they will remain on a particular activity for a longer period of time. Such people are peaceful and composed. They take tasks on sequentially, that is one by one, approaches challenges. So, the important characteristics are here. They take up tasks sequentially. It is their way of working instead of doing multitasking, which was a preferred way of working for type A people. Okay. They approach challenges with serenity and appreciates accomplishments without getting discouraged by setbacks. So, if there is something problematic which happens in the process of goal attainment, which keeps them from reaching to their goal for some times, or which makes it difficult to attain the goal, they will not get discouraged, they will not get disheartened, they can maintain their focus on the goal for a longer period of time, they will not be irritated, and at the same time they can appreciate every small step towards the goal attainment process. They are versatile, they have a patient mindset, they are accommodating. Any kind of change, any kind of deviations can easily be accommodated, and they are easy going towards others. They manages their emotions effectively, in contrast to what type A people do. They get agitated, they get angry very quickly, but type B people are not known for this kind of behavior. Then what happens with type C personality? They focus on attaining their aspirations, they are enthusiastic about reaching milestones, just as type A people do, but they have a passive attitude. The difference between type A and type C comes here. Now, you can focus on this, that they have a passive attitude and they are interested in people pleasing. Instead of type A people, what they do? They are highly competitive. They think that no one else can do the task the way they can. So, they are far more excellent than other people. Type C people do not do like this. They are interested in attaining the goal, very much interested, committed to their goals, but at the same time they value the personal and social relations also. So, they try to keep people happy, whosoever is around them, they try to have a compatible relationship with them also, and then they sometimes have a predisposition to suffer from helplessness. Means sometimes they think that because that person did not respond successfully, I could not achieve my goal, because that happened, I could not achieve my goal, everything is not in my hand. So, they develop learned helplessness. Okay. So, many times if they fail to attain their goal successfully, they can come up with multiple excuses which will definitely be related to the external environment and people around them. Okay. So, this was all about the personality types. Let us have a quick recap in the form of comparison. What happens that with personality A people are highly focused about their goals, they have a strong sense of time urgency, they are workaholics and have a very keen sense of perfection at hand. They fail to distribute their work, are not suitable to work in team because they always see others as being inferior to them, and also they get easily agitated, irritated if anything happens which does not suit their rigid mannerism. Similarly, if we look at personality B, they are very much different from type A people. They love to work on their own pace, they enjoy focusing on their own capacities and abilities, they are accommodating. usually good with other people who are around them and can manage their emotions effectively. Then type C personality has certain similarities with type A people. For example, they are also very dedicated towards their goal, but they differ from type A personality at a very different aspect, which is people pleasing. That means they do not attain their goal at the cost of the happiness and relationships what we have with other people. Rather, they can compromise with their goals a little bit, okay. And most of the time they feel helpless because they are too much dependent on others. They try to take everybody together, so this many times face difficulties in the goal attainment process, and they regulate their emotions mainly by suppression or repression. They cannot ventilate their emotions, they cannot manage them properly. So, what we have finally learned? We have learned that the complex mix of genetic predisposition, personality characteristics, then coping styles and past experiences make us respond in a certain manner towards stressful situation and make us perceive the level of stress as we do. It defines our hardiness, it defines our stress tolerance. The more we have hardiness, the less stress we feel, the easily we can manage it without getting impaired from the existing level of stress. This was all for this lecture. As always, these are the references and the recommended readings that can be utilized to enhance your knowledge further. Some more references. Here goes the list. Thank you very much for your patient listening. Thank you.